just saw that too.
I think now, maybe you can hear me now.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Kimberly, comment was a good one. And kind of how the board, I just reiterate a little bit. We are obviously very early in the process. And as Eric said in his presentation, it's, a concept at this point. We do want to make sure and collect as much feedback as we can on what people hope to see, and incorporate as much as we can, depending on, the city of Des Moines requirements once we get farther along in the process, et cetera. But my point is just, we appreciate the comments that we have got regarding aesthetics, traffic flow, and all these things will be considered just, at the appropriate time down the road. So they are being noted and are being thought about and will be considered, and we appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. We have a number, 515-802-6750. Please identify yourself and your address.
This is Dave Corey, and I reside at 10544 Clark Street. I also am the owner of Uptempo Music, which is the building right next door to the project. I'm looking at the project, and I do have some concerns as far as safety and traffic flow. I know they're going to address that later, but I wanted to bring these points up. I think they're trying to preserve the mural on the wall, but with this entrance, which is right next door to my store, is going to take out about 4 parking places on the street. You'll probably have to redo the streetscape, take down a tree for visibility. And also it's going to create some danger with, talking about the walking neighborhood of how are they going to see people come and going and in and out of that intersection with the visibility just a few feet from the street.
Okay, those are good concerns. Any other concerns there that you want to express?
Well, no, I'm just really concerned about the entrance. It's going to take out 3 or 4 spaces right on the street that we fought so strong to keep not that long ago. And not only affects me, but it affects the other businesses along that strip that rely on that street parking. It's also going to basically have the entrance, coming right in front of my store. So I'm concerned about the in and out. It's a narrow street of traffic going the other way, and whether that's the best place for the entrance. If this is a walking neighborhood and you're going to have people walking right past the store, not seeing cars coming and going, especially with the drive-through going and crossing a lane to get out and another lane coming in.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Mr. Pritchard, do you want to address those concerns?
Can you hear me? Thank you. Never know if it's getting unmuted. Yeah, Dave and I spoke, and those comments have been talked about internally. Tim, if you want to jump in here too, feel more than welcome. And I think we're trying to figure out exactly how we can get a couple of these spaces back, and we're open to ideas on how to do that, because you look at Beaver Drive and where the access sits now with the U.S. Bank building up to where compared to where we want it. Maybe there's some way we can get some on the opposite side of the entrance. I know that doesn't alleviate it fully, but maybe that gets us back one or two stalls, depending on the proximity to the intersection. We're just trying to think out loud on this, and any other feedback, or Tim, what you think would be appreciated. Thanks.
Yeah, this is Tim West again with Snyder and Associates. Can you hear me? We were asked by Kobe and Fairway to take a closer look at the amount of stalls that were impacting along Beaver. We are extending a driveway return towards the south, which would be close to the property line. When we look at that from a signage standpoint, what the existing condition is right there, it looks like there may be one stall that gets removed to the south in front of the music store. There is an existing driveway in that area, and we are intending to widen it. But again, to Kobe's point, we will be working on addressing all of these comments from the local residents and the adjacent business owner here. Our main concern is to maintain the mural that's along that building and to provide access with vehicles and try to balance that out. So we are not impacting the stalls towards the north of the driveway, but it appears we will be impacting some of it to the south, but by a stall or less. So we'll continue to take a look at that and work with that site plan issue during site development drawings.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the commission? I'm looking here. Okay, time to close the public hearing. Discussion from the commission. Discussion?
This is Francis Bogus speaking. As a resident of Beaverdale, I applaud Fairway coming into the neighborhood with this unique meat market concept, and I think it's exciting. And I think Fairway has demonstrated at the hearing that they're open to having input from the neighbors, including the adjacent property owner. So I think this is a tremendous asset, and I think we should adopt this zoning change to make the first step.
Okay, Francis. Any other discussion or someone want to make a motion?
Madam Chair, this is Greg Wattier.
Okay.
I'm also in support of this project and support of this rezoning. I also have some similar concerns as some others that we can address when the site plan comes back through. The need and whether or not there's justifies having a drive-through, and then the associated issues with potentially with the drive-through, the architecture and some other things. But overall, they're here for rezoning, and I'm in support of that.
Okay, I'd like to have a motion.
I'd make a motion to move staff.
Thank you. Roll call, Tyler.
Dory Briles.
Yes.
Jan Freed.
Yes.
Kayla Berkson.
Yes.
Lisa Howard.
Yes.
Steve Wallace.
Yes.
Carolyn Jennison.
Yes.
Francis Bogus.
Yes.
Greg Wattier.
Yes.
Greg Jones.
Yes.
Abby Chungith.
Yes.
Rocky Sposato.
Yes.
Will Page. Oh, sorry, Will's not with us anymore. Johnny Alcivar.
Yes.
And Emily Webb.
Yes.
Motion carries 13-0.
Thank you. Now we're on item number 8. Item number 8, Drake University, represented by Michelle Huggins, vicinity of 2421 Forest Avenue, to review and approve the following. Do you want to present that, Bert?
Sure. Madam Chair, members of the commission, Bert Drost, planner for the city of Des Moines. Before you tonight is a series of 5 requests that all really work to the same goal, and that is to create a 4.3 acre parcel that is zoned P2 district, which would allow for Drake and the Des Moines Public Schools to potentially build a soccer stadium. When I say potentially, that means that this rezoning is just the first step of a multi-step process. The P2 requires a conditional use for any soccer or any like assembly or entertainment use. So if the rezoning is approved, their next step would be to go to the Board of Adjustment to get that conditional use. And then it's also highly likely that the site plan for the stadium will need some type 2 design alternatives. So the site plan might be back before you for final approval before all is said and done. So I'll just quickly go through these 5 parts. The first is for vacation of 25th Street between Clark Street and Forest Avenue, and then also vacation of the north-south alley within that block immediately to the east of that. And then part B is to determine whether the rezoning is in conformance with the comprehensive land use plan. Part C is to amend portions of the land use plan so that the rezoning can be found compatible. And part D is to rezone about so that it's no longer within the Drake University Recreation PUD. And then part E is to rezone those 4.3 acres to P2. As I mentioned, they would be vacating 25th Street here and this north-south alley, and they would allow for creation of that 4.3 acre parcel here immediately to the east of the Shivers basketball facility. And then this is just showing where the city's comprehensive land use plan needs to be amended. Right now, the northern portion here is designated as residential, so it's a cleanup to designate it as a public-private use. And then down here along Forest Avenue, that's just changing it from a commercial corridor designation to a semi-public use. Then here are the areas that are being rezoned, and I know it looks busy, but generally, this area here is the existing Drake University Recreation PUD, and they're removing this area right here from that PUD, and then they're rezoning that portion as well as this strip of parcels along 24th Street to the P2 district. And I'm not going to focus too much on this site plan since, as I mentioned, the site plan will be subject to future review and approval. It's not up for review tonight, but you can see the general layout would be, it would be immediately to the east of the Shivers basketball practice facility. You can kind of see these dotted lines here are where 25th Street currently is, and then where the north-south alley is. Here are some general elevations that they've provided just to give some context to what it would look like. As part of the rezoning, they were required to first have a traffic study done, and that traffic study is done by an independent engineer and then approved by the city's engineering department. And as part of that traffic study, they had to take a look at they did a parking analysis. So you can see here, they did an analysis of all the off-street parking that is in the immediate vicinity. This dashed line here is the quarter-mile radius. But you can see that within about 750 feet, there are several large off-street parking areas. And so the traffic study found that the off-street parking should be able to accommodate the proposed use. And then the traffic study also looked at whether or not the existing street network could accommodate the loss of that segment of 25th Street. And it was the finding of the conclusion of that traffic study that, we go to that page, that conclusion number 2, or I'm sorry, conclusion number 3 is that the vacation of the north-south segment of 25th Street would have minimal adverse impacts on the network operations in that area. All right, so now moving on to the staff report, we did feel that the rezoning is appropriate. We feel that this area and the surrounding street network can accommodate the traffic for the stadium. Being on the fringe of a major college campus, we feel that this is an appropriate location for the soccer stadium. As you all know, the Knapp Center basketball facility and the Drake Stadium football and track stadium right there all would operate at different times of the year. Like football would mostly be in the fall, basketball in the winter, and then soccer in the spring. So I think that also plays into the traffic and the parking considerations for this area. So we have recommended approval of all 5 of the requests. No major conditions to point out. Part D is they need to amend the PUD conceptual plan for the Drake University PUD. That would be remaining. All right, now I'll put up all of the comment cards. And actually, first I'll show you the site photo, sorry. Yeah, this is looking to the northwest from the intersection of 24th Street and Forest Avenue. You can see that the east half of the block has already been cleared. This is again just looking south or north across the site. This is looking down 25th Street. So you can see Shivers basketball practice facility there to the west. And this is looking now south down 25th Street from the intersection with Clark. It's another angle. And this is looking straight north from Clark. I'm just pointing out that this new stadium would displace a 125 stall parking lot. All right. And so now I'll slowly go through these comment cards. I'll leave these up here. If anybody has any questions for me, now would be a good time to ask.
Questions for Jason? Or for Bert? Sorry, for Bert.
Sure. And as I flip through these, I'll point out that a lot of the concerns, especially within the letters and emails, have to do with the Des Moines Public Schools' choice to spend the money on this project. And that really isn't up for consideration today. That's more of an issue for the Des Moines Public School Board. This Plan and Zoning Commission body is really charged with looking at the land use aspects of this and determining if it's appropriate to close off 25th Street or if it's appropriate to rezone the site to P2. So we should really be steering the discussion tonight really away from the, I guess, the economics or the financial priorities of the school district.
Yeah, that's a good point, Bert, that we're not going to discuss whether or not there should be a stadium. We're talking about, we're going to stick to these items, particular items.
Yeah, so here's the consent map of the cards that we received. And then now I'm going to flip through about 17 pages of emails and letters that we've received. So you have to bear with me. And again, if anybody has any questions, now's a good time to ask.
Bert, since it's going to be difficult for us to read all these letters, I mean, were they mainly about should there be a stadium or not, or are they really pertaining to these items?
Well,
because it's going to be hard to read.
It's half and half. I would say quite a few of them raise the decision of the Des Moines Public School Board, but there are other concerns about losing that segment of 25th Street. Yeah, and there are another common theme is the concern about off-street parking in the area. And this one is showing that cars already block her driveway today. So. So maybe if the applicant wants to fill in any holes that I left in my presentation, now would be a good time for them to speak as well. I see Matt Cohen has his hand raised.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
Excellent. This is Matt Cohen with RDG Planning and Design, 301 Grand Avenue in Des Moines. We're the architect on the project, and there's a number of other representatives of the project on the call tonight as well. Those include Jason Bloom, who is responsible for the site from a design standpoint with RDG Planning and Design as well. We have Michelle Huggins with the university architect at Drake University, and Bill Good with Des Moines Public Schools is on the call as well. There might be others. I can't see the participant list. So we're available for questions. I think Bert did a really nice job of providing the overview of the project. It is a 4,000 seat stadium in the long run, but as he mentioned, this is really just step one to speak to rezoning as well as the vacation of both 25th Street and the alley.
Okay.
So just to stay focused on those areas would be our request. We are available for questions along the way. Would like to thank the members of the commission for taking up this item this evening, and the staff for working hard over the last a month or so reviewing the item with us.
Okay. Thank you, Matt. Questions for Matt from the commission? Questions for Matt? Okay. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in favor of this proposal? Please raise your hand or *6 to unmute. Anyone else wants to speak in favor of this? Okay. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition or has concerns and you want to express? And again, that it has to do with the items we're discussing tonight. Okay, I see Rick Dressler. Okay, please state your name and address, please.
Yes, this is Rick Dressler. I live at 1916 27th Street. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm generally opposed to the stadium project, but I'm particularly opposed to the closing of 25th Street between Forest and Clark. This would have a detrimental effect on our neighborhood, one that has increased over the years with the increased use of the Drake Stadium and the nearby facilities for sports and for political events. People parking further and further north into the neighborhood on 27th Street is an inconvenience and has increased over recent years. Another inconvenience is and has been the closing of 27th Street by the field house. That is always blocked off when there's a game there on Friday nights. That chokes off the neighborhood during games, and it requires us to go even farther out of our way to get to destinations to the south. 25th Street is an important street for access into and out of the area north of the proposed project, and I disagree it should be vacated. This possible impact, along with the increased traffic, noise, and disturbance this project will bring, is not a good direction to go. In my opinion, Drake would be better served by building a parking garage south of Forest. To reiterate, closing 25th Street takes away frequent travel route by bike and car, and to limited access that 27th Street already has between Forest and Hickman Road. And I'm just also concerned about the increased traffic in the neighborhood as being a burden to the peace and quiet of our neighborhood up here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Questions for Mr. Dressler from the commission? Questions? Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to speak tonight, express concerns about what we are discussing? Okay, I see a hand. Dan Parduck. Go ahead, your name and address, please. Dan Pardak? Would you like to speak?
It's showing that his microphone is not functioning. So there it is now. He would have to unmute by *6 if he's on a phone.
Yeah, please unmute if you'd like to speak. *6 on your phone to unmute. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Okay.
I can hear now. I can hear him now.
Okay, Dan?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. State your name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Dan Pardock. I live at 4118 Lower Beaver Road.
Okay, you might want to speak a little louder.
And I apologize. The audio on my laptop is not the greatest, as we can tell already. Are you able to hear me okay?
It's a little weak, but do the
And
best.
I do have your letter pulled up, Dan.
Oh,
Okay, I'll do my best. Is that any better?
that's better.
Okay. I apologize for the technical difficulties. I do want to just touch on a couple things. I understand and I appreciate your clarification that this meeting is focused on the actual plot of land itself, not.
Can't hear him.
Hello?
That's better, but keep talking so we can hear.
Okay. I understand that you want to stay away from the financial aspect of the stadium, and that's what the majority of my letter pertain to. But I do want to point out just a couple things then as far as the use of the stadium itself. I understand the gentleman that spoke previously talked about football in the fall, soccer in the spring. I just want to point out that the DMPS sample schedule does show for football in the fall that both this stadium and Drake Stadium would be used at the same time, hosting football games at the same time on Friday nights, with 4 teams arriving along with their fans, along with their marching band, their support staff. I feel that the ability for the parking lots and the streets currently aren't able to handle that type of traffic. Also, the Drake soccer team would be using this stadium in the fall for their games, so we've got more activity then. And then moving into the spring, you're dealing with not only high school soccer, but also middle school soccer as well, with that stadium being used practically every night and weekends as well for practices. I don't feel that the people living in that neighborhood around those streets would appreciate that extra traffic. And as I wrap up my point, I do want to point out that Des Moines Public Schools is currently under litigation regarding not calling for a public vote on this stadium. So there is a very real possibility that you could end up with either an empty plot of land without a plan to build a stadium on it, or you could end up with a half-built facility that is then voted down by the public to be able to use SAVE funds to finish up the construction of that stadium. And I'd hate to see Drake or the city of Des Moines or DMPS be faced with that situation. Thank you. And once again, I apologize for the technical difficulties.
Okay. Thank you. I'm having trouble hearing.
He's done now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, questions for Dan from the commission? I'm looking here. Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak, express concerns for this item? Is there anyone else who wants to speak? Okay, I see Karen Harmon. Corinne?
Hi, sorry, it is Corinne Harmon.
Corinne, okay, Corinne. Your address, please?
1543 27th Street, so I'm pretty much across from the practice field.
Okay.
I also have the traffic concerns as far as, and I noted that in my email, but during the larger events, people pretty much park wherever they please. And there is a lot of traffic just on 27th in general. And there are portions that get blocked off during these larger events, like the end of 27th Street at Forest. So if it was going to be anything comparable to that, I don't know how that is going to be managed. So I guess that would be primarily what I'd be concerned about, just with all these roads being closed around, like it had been noted before on 26 or just past, sorry, the one that's on the other side of the stadium that had been closed off already. It just seems like this is kind of a continuous thing.
Okay, questions for Ms. Harmon from the commission? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak, express concerns about this item? Okay, it's time to close the public hearing. Commission, time for discussion. We've heard some concerns. We've heard some strong themes.
Madam Chair,
yes.
Madam Chair, I think we should allow the
yes.
Drake group to have a rebuttal if they.
Yes, thank you very much. Okay. Yes, the applicant or someone representing the proposal. Matt, yes, Matt.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. This is Matt Cohen again. Yeah. And thank you for the comments that we heard this evening. We'll take those under advisement, particularly the temporary closures came to mind on the 27th Street. That is something we'll have to look into for the future. Drake University will be the operator of this facility in the long run and has already begun the strategizing about not overloading this series of venues, both seasonally and on a night-by-night basis. So it's highly unlikely that we would see that type of scenario where you'd have a full Drake Stadium and a full soccer stadium on the same night. But those are all operational issues that are being considered concurrently to the design considerations. So very good feedback from the group there. In terms of parking demands and just the general closure, would refer back to the traffic study and analysis that was completed for the stadium that resulted in recommendations as well. That was on page 39. Bert, if you wanted to refer back to that on whether that would have an adverse impact in the long run. And then as well as the parking study, the number of cars generated by this facility is not 4,000. It's about 1,200, if I remember correctly from this report. It's in the details of the report as well. Most of those cars can be accommodated within a quarter mile of the facility. And we're overparked when you take that half-mile radius from the facility as well. So those are some outcomes that where we are at this early stage. And of course, we'll continue to address those concerns as the design continues to develop.
Thank you, Matt. Additional questions for Matt from the commission?
Yeah, Madam Chair, this is Greg. I have a couple questions.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, Matt. Have you had any kind of public engagement sessions with the immediate neighborhood, or do you plan in the future to do that? And then the second question is, have you met with the Drake Neighborhood Board, or I'm sorry, the Drake Neighborhood Association, and where are you in that process?
Sure. So thanks, Greg. Good question. We met with the Neighborhood Association Board on September 9th, I believe was the evening, and presented the project. Ryan Arnold represents Drake University as well as John Smith and has provided regular updates on this project on a month-by-month basis, but our formal meeting occurred on September 9th. Then in terms of the communication with the immediate neighbors, that would be a question that I'd have to defer to Michelle if she's available. or Ryan Arnold if he happens to be on the call.
This is Michelle Huggins.
Okay, Michelle, go ahead.
Michelle Huggins, 1535 Germania Drive in Des Moines. The correspondence as the map that Bert showed on the screen of letters that were sent out to neighbors, in addition to the Drake Neighborhood Association review of the full project have been completed to date. Our intent is to continue on the monthly board agenda for the Drake Neighborhood Association to provide updates as we progress through and continue to capture their input.
Hello, Michelle. This is Greg again. Drake has historically done a fantastic job, in my opinion, of trying to integrate into neighborhoods on the north, south, east, and west. So I expect that will continue. I would highly encourage you to actually have engagement sessions with them, not just show up to board meetings and present things. Matt's done these, I'm sure you have as well, but actual engagement sessions and charrettes and conversations. I love going to your athletic events. I don't live too far down the road. And I also know that no matter what traffic studies say, people park where people want to park. So I understand the issues, and I also understand when you buy a home near a stadium, that kind of comes with it in an interurban neighborhood. But my point is, I would encourage you to actually have charrette sessions and engagement sessions with the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Other comments or questions from the commission to either Matt or Michelle? Okay. Time to close the public hearing. Discussion from the commission.
Jan, this is Rocky. I'll move staff.
Okay. We have a motion. Tyler?
Lisa Howard.
Yes.
Steve Wallace.
Yes.
Carolyn Jennison.
Yes.
Francis Bogus.
No.
Greg Wadier.
Yes.
Greg Jones.
No.
Abby Shumgith.
Yes.
Rocky Sposato.
Yes.
Johnny Alcivar.
Yes.
Emily Webb.
Yes.
Dory Briles.
Yes.
Jan Freed.
Yes.
And Kayla Bergson.
Yes.
Motion carries 11-2.
Thanks, Tyler. Now we're ready for item number 10.
Sorry, item 9, I believe.
Oh. 9. Correct.
Madam Chair, this is Eric Lundy, Senior City Planner.
Yeah.
Item 9 is a request from First Baptist Church of Urbandale, Iowa. I believe Pastor McCoy is here this evening along with their design professional, Roger Silver, who's been leading the review on the site plan process, administrative site plan process. This was reviewed administratively. Based on that administrative review, there was 2 type 2 design alternatives that came out of that based on chapter 135. This property is zoned P2, same as the zoning you were just considering, which is primarily what you would see churches throughout the city zoned. And they own additional property. And as soon as I show you the map, you'll see that's P2 that they want to develop accessory building which would provide and house offices and also a shop for their buses as well. So they have a number of buses, and I'll let them speak to their operation. But the main design alternatives they're seeking is the allowance to expand their on-site parking into the front yard along East 38th Street, which would not be in the rear side yard. And then they also want to waive the requirement for the primary entrance of the building that they're proposing to be not on the primary facade of Hull Avenue. So they're proposing an east-facing entrance to a driveway that would connect to Hull Avenue from the site. This is the area up on the northeast side, Hull Avenue and East 38th Street. You can see they actually own additional property that's residents over here on East 37th Street, but the site is limited to this area that I'm sort of tracing here with the main church. And then previously they'd extended parking south towards Hull. This is the area they're now wanting to build the new structure. I'm going to zoom out here so these photos can be. So this is looking west from East 38th Street along the north side of the existing church. You can see there's a drive entrance there to the right. And I believe they pretty much operate with a one-way circulation at this time, but that will be changed with this proposal. They have a driveway on the south side of the building as well. This is looking from interior to the existing parking lot, and you can see where that red car is parked. That's the parking that extends to the south towards Hull. So you're looking directly south through the parking lot to the back, at the back of the church. This is the reverse perspective of the same area. You can again see the red car, but looking from Hull Avenue north at the church building, and you can see a little playground equipment to the right. That's actually part of a daycare facility that's at the corner of East 38th and Hull. And there you see a little bit more of the playground for that. The proposed building they're using the workshop warehouse type, which is a permitted building type in the P2 district. I think that they chose this because it suits the functionality of what they're looking to accomplish. Again, if you're looking at the north elevation, they did meet the requirements by putting their overhead door access internally to the site. But if you look at the east elevation, you can see that they have their primary door faces to the east. Part of this, I believe, is due to the grades that are of the property and getting an accessible access to their building. If you look at the south elevation right here, you can see that the floor level is much higher and wouldn't allow an accessible entrance without building up the site fairly extensively. So I think the terrain of the property is dictating their placement of their entrance to some extent. I'm going to have to switch over to the site plan. I couldn't get it to embed into the presentation because it had a security protocol attached to it. So I'm just going to look at it separately. And I think the easiest thing to look at here is the landscaping plan, if I can get to it. So if you can, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and Roger can hopefully speak to this a little bit more, but this is the building. It's going to set right along Hull with a reasonable setback. The parking they're going to displace some parking in this area. You can see the overhead doors would access from the north. I believe they're striping parking for use during church services when they wouldn't be accessing the building. They're proposing a drive access to Whole Avenue that would allow two-way circulation. And you can see that there's a small amount of landscaped area that would also be east of the building. The entrance access is right here. And one of staff's concerns is if we're not addressing the street, then we want to make sure that there's good pedestrian connectivity. They are building a sidewalk along their frontage. At this point, it doesn't really go a whole lot to the west. So if we went back to the aerial photo, and I can show you that, they would, the connectivity is really only to the east by the daycare at this point in time. But ultimately, the idea is that we would get sidewalks on all these public streets. But we want to make sure they're showing a little walk that goes out to the drive. It's our preference as staff that they provide a connection to the street sidewalk from this. Now that may not be accessible given the conditions, but it would be an option. And then they would still be able to run their accessible entrance to the north to get to their parking area. But it would provide some more pedestrian connectivity from the building to the public street, which is really the intent of having the primary entrance to the public street in the first place. I'm going to sort of scroll over here and show you the parking. The new spaces are the ones that are in the dark lined area. So there is parking that goes to this extent right now on their south driveway, heading north in towards the building. But this area, you had seen in the photos that this driveway exists, probably as more of an in versus an out. And then they're looking to show a one-way circulation that would leave and head the parking in towards the south at an angle. But this area extends, and then they would add some perpendicular spaces to the existing driveway. So there's about 5 or 6 spaces that really get in front of the front of the building, which is right here. So staff is concerned that this doesn't really meet the intent of the code, and these aren't absolutely necessary to meet their minimum parking requirement. So staff is recommending not approving the design alternative, which would allow them to extend this parking towards East 38th Street. But we are recommending allowance of the east-facing door on the proposed building, subject to getting that pedestrian connectivity to the south. And I'll flip back to the staff report so you can see what we're proposing. Denial of the type 2 to allow on-site parking within the front yard area along East 38th. However, staff is recommending approval of the requested type design alternative, and that should say type 2, I apologize. In part B, to allow the primary entrance of the workshop warehouse building to be located on the east non-street facing facade, subject to provision of a pedestrian walk connection from this entrance to both Whole Avenue public sidewalk and to the on-site parking lot to the north. This is the consent map. I don't believe we've got any written responses or written concerns or comments on this. Is there anything? Let me know if you want to go back to see anything, if I need to toggle back between the site plan.
Okay, questions from the commission? Okay, is the applicant online?
It looks like Roger Silver's online.
Okay. There, okay. Please state your name and your address, please. Mr. Silver, do you want to talk?
He was unmuted. I think maybe he accidentally muted himself again.
Okay. *6 to unmute.
There we go.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay, great.
Name
Thank
and
you.
address.
Roger Silver with Nillis Associates at 1250 Southwest State Street in Ankeny. Here on behalf of First Baptist Church, and Pastor Dan McCoy, I believe, is listening in as well. We appreciate all the work that the city staff has done with us on this, and I'm going to try to keep it quick. The east entrance on the new building is really intended to be a working space for the church staff, for conferences, to work on buses, and so that's why it's also important that the entrances, the proximity is to the existing church. So we believe it's also appropriate, not just from the grade standpoint, but also from a proximity to the existing church. And we are certainly willing to provide a sidewalk to the south. So we hope that we're in agreement on that. With the parking, Pastor Dan and I had a discussion about that. We want to be a good neighbor, and we want to continue to work with the city on this. We thought we needed those stalls in order to meet our requirements. I would say that if we could go back and look at the aerial photo, Eric, especially if it shows the Grandview child development, I don't know if there's a potential compromise situation where we could look at keeping the stalls on the south side of the drive, because there is parking, just across the lot line from the daycare. I think you can see it in one of the aerials as well. They park close to East 38th. And so, whereas we realize on the north side of the site, we're up against a residential property. So if we need to pull those back, we're certainly willing to comply with what staff's recommendations are. But Woodard did want to at least point out that those stalls are important to the church because they also are in proximity to the main entrance, and so provide some of the elderly patrons less distance to walk to get to church. And so we're certainly at your mercy on this. And if you say no, we'll proceed and understand that. But we would at least like to see if there's a possibility of keeping the stalls that are on the south side of that drive, as opposed to the ones in the front of the north side. Because again, you've already got cars that head in park on the daycare. So you've already got vehicles that close to 38th directly south of us. So with that, I will be glad to answer any questions about the site or anything for you. Thank you.
Questions from Mr. Silver from the commission? Okay, is there anyone else who'd like to speak in favor of this proposal?
Madam Chair, it looked like Pastor McCoy has got his hand up.
Pastor McCoy?
This is Eric.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Roger, I think you and I, sorry?
Please state your name and address.
Oh, yes. Pastor Dan McCoy, and we're the owner of the First Baptist Church, 3020 East 38th Street.
Thank you.
And thank you for the commission for reviewing this. I think, Roger, we had a misunderstanding. I was looking more towards trying to preserve the parking on the north side of the church as opposed to the 3 on the east. And the reason is because we would like to get our members from having to park on East 37th Street and on Whole Avenue during our services. And most of the parking would be on Sunday only. As Roger stated, Grandview Daycare has parking facing very close to East 38th. And what I'm looking for is as many as I can get on the north side, not necessarily the angled ones on the south side. And I apologize, Roger. I'm not sure how we miscommunicated there, but.
Madam Chair, I'm just going to clarify what Pastor Dan said. So you want to retain these up in this area, these 3 that would extend, past the front, but these aren't as critical as what you're saying.
That's correct.
Okay.
Another reason is because we have a sidewalk on that north side that has an entrance and an exit, and that we would like to park the staff there during the morning services, where the staff parking on the north side of the new proposed building is, and so we like to park the staff cars there so our visitors can have parking in front of the new proposed building.
Okay, other questions? Any questions?
This is Abby Chunguth. I just have a question. I want to clarify that the parking spaces that exist right now just south of the building towards East 38th Street, that those are not going to exist anymore. Sort of in this picture where it looks like maybe the buses are parked on the south side of the building. Are there no parking spots there, or are they going to be eliminated? I'm just curious as to what's happening with that area.
Yeah, this is Roger Silver again, and those stalls do exist, and they are intended to stay. And why they are not showing up as striped on this drawing is certainly my fault, and I apologize for that. But no, they are intended to still exist.
Thank you. Other questions?
Oh, now I see it. Okay.
Oh, I see it too. Okay.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay. Is there anyone who wants to express concerns about this proposal? Is there anyone on the line who wants to express concerns? Okay. Time to close the public hearing. Commission discussion. What would the commission like to do? Comments?
Jan, this is Greg Jones. I'll move staff.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Tyler?
Steve Wallace.
Yes.
Carolyn Jennison.
Yes.
Francis Bogus.
Yes.
Greg Wattier.
Yes.
Greg Jones.
Yes.
Abby Chunguth.
Yes.
Rocky Spazzato.
Yes.
Johnny Alcivar.
Yes.
Emily Webb.
Yes.
Dory Briles.
Yes.
Jan Freed.
Yes.
Kayla Bergson.
Yes.
And Lisa Howard.
Yes.
Motion carries 13-0.
Thanks, Tyler. Item number 10. Item number 10, Quick Trip Corporation, represented by Jessica Glava. The subject property is owned by Humphreys Fund. Location 1421 Ingersoll Avenue. Jason.
Chair, members of the commission, Jason Van Essen with the city's planning staff. Hopefully you can see my screen displayed. We're reading the heading there, so just take that a step further. Part B is a determination whether or not the rezoning is in conformance with the comprehensive plan. Then Part B is the request to rezone the subject property from MX2 to MX3 to allow the existing fuel station to have the ability to seek a conditional use permit for alcoholic liquor sales. And let's go on to page 2. Just give me a second here. Aerial identifying the subject property. It's on the north side of Ingersoll Avenue. Frontage on High Street, 15th Street and 14th Street. So kind of a road-locked property. You can see the building sits on the western part of the site with a gas canopy to the east, kind of in the middle of the property. Also, the map identifies the kind of the existing zoning in the area. You can see the site's MX2. You have MX2 and RX2 to the north. Then we have DX2 and DX1 to the south, which is our downtown zoning districts. Photograph of the subject property looking generally to the west. Along the northern property boundary, looking westward. Looking back towards the downtown. In your packet, you received a copy of the staff report. In it, we did our typical analysis, looked at the zoning in the area, evaluated the proposal against the future land use map. Just a couple things to highlight in the second section of the report. We dialed in on looking at the comprehensive plan. We do believe that the rezoning can be found in conformance with the future land use map designation of downtown mixed use. We did point out a couple things that led us to offering some conditions as part of that. It should be noted that MX3 district has some industrial uses and vehicle sales and service uses that are allowed by right that are either prohibited or are conditional uses in the MX2 and DX districts. And we feel that any consideration of this rezoning needs to account for that. And so as I get into the staff recommendation, I'll come back to that, but I just wanted to point that out while I had the body of the report up. We also included information on the conditional use review process in the report, noted the separation requirement and the need for a variance of that should the property be rezoned and should the applicant move forward with requesting a conditional use. Also, in part 3 there, you can see kind of a long stretch of text, but this is the criteria that the Board of Adjustment looks at and staff looks at when we evaluate an application. I won't go into a lot of detail on it, but I wanted to point that out because tonight we're focusing on, does the zoning make sense from a broad planning perspective? Is it in conformance with the future land use map? The question on whether or not they would be able to obtain a variance and a conditional use approval, that's a different question for a different board. Staff is recommending approval, but we are offering up very limiting conditions or very specific conditions, very similar to other requests that we talked about tonight, where it would be limited to the use or the ability to get a conditional use approval from the board for liquor sales, with the balance of the rest of the uses being limited to those that are allowed in the MX2 district and as regulated by the MX2 district. Also, condition 2 there speaks to accessory structures. And as noted for the Fairway project, that's where we regulate drive-throughs. And condition number 2 would actually prohibit the ability to do a drive-through on the property should it be redeveloped in the future. Response map, we notify everybody within 250 feet of the property. You can see the inner circle is the 200-foot zone, and that is the kind of the radius that based off a state code dictates the supermajority requirement at the city council, where you have 20% or more opposition within that notice area based off the land area. If it exceeds that 20%, it does require supermajority. You can see in the calculation here that we are at a little over 40% represented on the map. I do want to point out that the properties along to the south and to the west, we did receive correspondence from the property owner of those properties. The letter wasn't signed, and per our policy, we don't reference that on this map until we have a signature. I've passed that on to them, and I'm anticipating getting something that will clear that up for them prior to the city council hearing, so we'll have that updated for that. There are a lot of responses. I'll try to flip through these and give you enough time to see them. We can certainly come back to them, but I want to try to balance, respect everybody's time. They're available to be revisited. So at any point that you'd like me to circle back, just let me know. The first few I focused on adjoining property owners. So you have the response cards, you have Unity Point, which owns property to the north. Wellmark. And I apologize if it's not clear. These letters, although they're not marked with a red dash, they are, all these correspondents are in opposition to the proposal. This is the Kraus Group communication I referenced that we did have a signature on. Communication from the Sherman Hill Association. Correspondence from the Downtown Neighbor Association.
Okay, so because this is fast, Jason, all of these, I just want to be clear, all of these are in opposition.
That is correct.
Okay.
With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have for staff. And happy to circle back through any of the information that you'd like to take a look at a second time.
Okay, thank you. Is the applicant here online? Okay, I see a hand. Ben Bruner. Please state your address.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Ben Bruner, I'm with the Dickinson Law Firm, 699 Walnut Street here in Des Moines. Good evening, commissioners, and thanks as always for your time and attention. Thanks to city staff for their time and efforts and energy on this application as well. I'm here on behalf of Quick Trip, as is Jessica Glavis. I believe she's on, and to the extent you need any specific operational answers, or if you have any specific questions, she's probably more apt and better better able to handle those types of questions. But again, we're here for the store located at 1421 Ingersoll, again, in which we are seeking a rezoning from MX2 to MX3 classification, which will allow for, one, the subsequent ability to request the sale of liquor from the store, and two, the flexibility to remodel and upgrade the current store as well. I can say that this is a store that QT is extremely excited about, in a neighborhood that QT is extremely excited about, both in the short term and long term. So I just want to kind of, in that vein, touch on the potential reinvestment and upgrade of this store site. So QT is currently evaluating internally the options for remodel and upgrade of this site to a new modern aesthetic. And we hope to be able to share those plans in the near future. This is a difficult site just based on the size and configuration. So again, the options are fairly limited in that respect, but we're hopeful that we can get something in place that everybody's truly excited about. The remodel would bring with it, like all the new remodeled stores throughout the metro, expanded fresh food options, again, an updated high-class modern building design, and then enhanced security and operational functions as well. And this would be another huge investment and commitment by QT to the city of Des Moines, just like the rest of its recently redeveloped stores throughout the city. I bring this up as the decision to invest millions of dollars in a store upgrade certainly requires some internal financial review of the store's operations and a minimum current and future anticipated profitability level in order to justify such a large investment. And in light of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in an effort to adjust and ensure profitability for particular store operations, convenience stores need to explore every additional income generating opportunity during these challenging times, in which there's been a decrease in retail sales and fuel sales throughout the city and around the country, frankly. Acknowledging the opportunity to help businesses, I do note that the state of Iowa recently passed their law as far as to-go cocktails, and that allows many surrounding businesses in this area and around the Sculpture Park vicinity the ability to sell to-go cocktails, and I believe even bottles of liquor to go as well. And just generally, I think, frankly, in this area in question, the current economic climate and the maturation of the development in this area is very different than 2012 when QT initially entertained this request. And I think both factors there, the change in the environment and the economic climate, certainly should factor in here and weigh in heavily in granting this proposal here in 2020. Jason touched on it a little bit, but I want to reiterate from a procedural standpoint what we're looking at and ultimately what we would need to go through. So again, there will be additional approvals that would be required in the future. This is merely a zoning change to allow us to submit an application for conditional use to sell liquor. There's going to be city council meetings and approvals necessary for the rezoning. There will be Board of Adjustment approval that will be needed as to the conditional use. And then I believe, staff can correct me, but I believe additional council approval would be needed to the extent there are separation distance variants required in the future as well. So this is merely the first step in a long process that would last 2 to 3 months at least, I imagine. We did not receive any written or oral objections to this request from any neighbors directly. I did request in the last couple of days any responses to the city and did receive a number of the objections that had come in. So we have had an opportunity to truly discuss this with neighbors just based on the fact we didn't receive any correspondence directly outside of a few questions from the neighborhood groups, which we answered expeditiously. So again, with this kind of first step of many steps here, we invite and encourage all neighborhood associations, neighbors, surrounding businesses to reach out to us so we can have a truly productive conversation and address any concerns. We're an open book here. We're reasonable folk. We're a corporate citizen in this neighborhood, so we want to make sure, obviously, we're doing the right thing for the neighborhood, the employees, and our customer base, certainly. So again, we fully embrace that as the process moves along here, hopefully. Touching quickly on kind of safety mechanisms and operations. So I think Quick Trip has established itself as an extremely high quality store operator and again, corporate citizen. They've proven themselves to be a highly responsible, safety conscious, and respectful operator. And they remain committed to ensure the protection, again, of its customers, employees, and fellow citizens. So in every store, QT follows strict protocols and procedures for the sale of liquor, and this store would certainly be no different. They incorporate industry-leading safety procedures, equipment, and services to, again, ensure the safest and most responsible operations of its stores, and again, the neighborhoods they serve. Their reputation and track record with regards to the sale of liquor at its other Des Moines stores should serve as further evidence of the company's commitment to safe and responsible operations and liquor sales. Allowing the sale of liquor at this store location will ensure consistency of operations and offerings throughout the stores, which is vital for any business, again, especially during these challenging times. And then finally, I do just want to note, and I think it needs to be noted, that certain other convenience store competitors of QT have recently sought and obtained the right to sell liquor. Most notably, Come and Go, who I believe has even submitted a written objection to this request, very recently received approval for a conditional use to sell liquor in the downtown core at its new concept store at 319 7th Street and along University Avenue at 2211 University Avenue. Further, an additional competitor received the same approvals being requested today for stores at 3121 Forest Avenue and 3200 Southwest 9th. And I would just say we would expect and respect similar assistance and treatment from the city, which obviously has a history of fair and equitable treatment in such matters. So I thank you again for your time and consideration. I thank city staff again for their time and consideration. I thank the neighbors and surrounding businesses for their comments and interest, and we look forward to working with all parties to again address any concerns as we move forward. So to the extent there's any questions for us, certainly feel free. Thank you.
Questions for Mr. Bruner from the commission? Questions? Okay, is there anyone else who wants to speak in favor of this proposal? I see Ryan Howell.
I'm not in favor of this, but if there's no one, I don't expect there's anyone in favor on this call.
Okay, sorry. I just saw your hand up. Okay. Anyone else who wants to speak in favor of this proposal? Okay. Anyone who wants to speak in opposition or express concerns? And I'm looking at Ryan Howell. We'll start there and then followed by Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ryan Howell, 831 16th Street, also the current president of the Sherman Hill Association. I'll try to be brief. You saw the long list of letters that Jason scrolled through quickly. I hope the members of the commission have a chance to read those. They're thought out and they're very thoughtful and also heartfelt of people who live and work in this area. I want to first respond to a couple comments by QT and make sure that everybody understands while this is a zoning issue right now, the only purpose of rezoning this is to sell liquor. And so that's why people are very passionate about this right now. When QT says that they want to do right thing for the neighborhood, that's clearly this conflicts with everything you've seen in all these letters. And I think you're seeing a fraction of the letters or represent a fraction of the people that I spoke to that are very angry and upset that QT would even think to make this request or try to make this move. With respect to the idea that this is part of a larger upgrade plan, frankly, I believe this is putting the cart before the horse. When a major investment or development like this would happen in this area, we would expect right thing for the neighborhood would include talking to the neighborhood about that planning and having that conversation and dialogue before trying to move forward with the liquor license and then being stuck with that and negotiating and having that dialogue from a different position, a different place. This request, frankly, is just going to do nothing more than prey on the most vulnerable members of our community. And I would just bring up the adage, the real estate adage, this is location, location, location. This isn't like a store on University Avenue or anywhere else in town. This location is in close proximity to our homeless shelters and our homeless camps, long-term homeless camps on the south side of downtown. And those are customers who frequent this location and will continue to frequent this location. There's a number of letters that have been submitted to you that speak to the addiction issues in this community and how this will be impacted by having accessible alcohol, as well as Unity Point speaking about how they will impact their patients and their treatment center. And it's also in close proximity to our neighborhood, a residential neighborhood that sees the overflow from current wine and beer sales. And it's in very close proximity to the sculpture park, which you had a letter from the director of the Arts Center of Des Moines, a crown jewel of our community. And so I would ask that this commission consider all the letters and the input here regarding this request being inconsistent with the surrounding area. And even if this zoning would create an island that is inconsistent with anything around it, either the downtown business district or the residential neighborhood immediately to the north. And so I would encourage QT to consider withdrawing this request and talking to its neighbors, because people were very, very angry. A lot of them had not heard about this when I reached out to them, business owners and residents. And, I'd point out there are two other gas stations that are in the close proximity on Kia Way, new gas stations that have been built in the last few years that are very nice. Neither of them sell liquor. And there's a reason for that, because they respect the area and the nature of this community and understand that would be a very negative change and affect us all in a very negative way. So I thank you for your time and consideration, and considering all the time and effort that the neighbors and business owners put into contacting this commission to ask you to turn this down. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, comments for Mr. Bruner from the commission?
You mean Mr. Howell?
I'm sorry. Yes. Oh. Okay, Mr. Howell. Questions? Sorry. Yes, right. Okay. We have Scott, and then Jim Wine, and then Jack Porter. Try to, as you address the issues, try to point out a different perspective, if possible.
Thank you. My name is Scott Seelix, and I, along with my wife, own Lua Brewing. We're located at 1525 High Street, which is essentially catty corner from the Quick Trip location at issue here, and we're certainly within the 250 feet radius. We are opposed to this measure. My wife and I opened Lua Brewing last November. We invested our life savings into bringing a brewery into Sherman Hill, and we love this neighborhood. And we specifically chose Sherman Hill because of how wonderful the community is. And I can say in our first year in business, we faced numerous challenges we didn't expect. But at the top of that list of challenges that we faced has been having to walk our bartenders out to their car every night, particularly our female bartenders, because they're asked for money, drugs, or worse. It's coming into work or leaving work and seeing intoxicated people passed out on our porch, in our dumpster corral behind our building, or seeing human feces in those areas as well. We're not trying to persecute those people. We understand that these people are sick and need help. But this measure, we believe, would throw flame on what is a problem in our community that's been addressed over the last 20 years, and it's getting better. I think if you think back on Sherman Hill 20 to 30 years ago and where it is today, it's really unbelievable the growth of this neighborhood. And part of where that growth has come from is increased access to mental health services, increased resources for the homeless, the other part of that, though, has been the incredible effort of people to invest into this community. The growth of Sherman Hill didn't happen by accident. It happened because people chose to move back to Sherman Hill and actively work to eliminate crime and delinquency. It happened because the Sherman Hill Neighborhood Association continually chooses to do good through charity, through coming together as a community. And it happened because people like my wife and I invested our life savings into a neighborhood. It took a lot of effort to get the neighborhood to this point. And I think approving a measure like this would throw gas on a flame that we've been trying to put out for a while. If you look at the feedback of the neighborhood, it is overwhelmingly and actually unanimously opposed to this measure. Every single piece of feedback was in opposition to this measure. We believe this is in no one's best interest, including Quick Trip. That's short-sighted. I see that they see it as a boost to their bottom line, but I think the externality, the results of this will be tough on the neighborhood. In response to a couple of the comments from Mr. Bruner, he mentioned to-go cocktails at surrounding bars. Those cocktails, number one, are expensive, and they're not conveniently single-serve bottles that people can go in and pick up. It's not that everyone serves those. At Lua Brewing, we actually choose not to serve liquor. We serve only wine and beer because we recognize that serving liquor in this neighborhood is something that can be a problem. And more, I think a bigger point to address is something he said. He spoke about wanting a dialogue in terms of this measure. No one in the neighborhood heard from them before this meeting. And my wife and I went through the same process last year to get Lua Brewing off the ground. And we went about it completely the opposite way. We reached out to the Sherman Hill Neighborhood Association. We personally reached out to every single neighbor because we knew we were going to be selling beer in a neighborhood where alcohol has been a problem. And we worked together to come to a solution. And by the time we came to ask for a conditional use permit, every single person in the neighborhood was behind us. We had nobody that opposed our motion. And Mr. Bruner easily could have done the same thing. He could have come to us. I don't think it would have been hard to walk across the street to here at Lua Brewing. I spend 100 hours a week here. So I'm here all the time and said, hey, let's talk about this and figure out how we can do this. That didn't happen. I think for a lot of reasons, we're opposed to this. And I know I've spoken for a while. So thank you for your time.
From the commission? Okay, we have more people who would like to speak. Jim Wine.
Can you hear me, Jan?
Yes.
Commission members of the commission, my name is Jim Wine. I'm at the Nymaster Good Law Firm, 700 Walnut Street. I represent Unity Point, which operates Iowa Methodist Medical Center, which is directly across the street from this Quick Trip. Unity Point is very pleased to be part of the Western Gateway neighborhood, which has seen such tremendous growth and improvement over the years, and we're very pleased to be part of it. We are, it is unusual for Unity Point to get involved in a zoning dispute. But I will tell you, there was no hesitation in getting involved in this dispute. Unity Point is firmly opposed to this rezoning request. And make no mistake about it, this is about hard liquor sales. It's not about some other general zoning reclassification. So we do not understand the standpoint of we'll deal with zoning, we'll deal with just zoning now and liquor later, when the sole purpose of this rezoning is to allow liquor sales. From a purely narrow viewpoint of how does this affect the Iowa Methodist Medical Center property, they deal with it pretty much on a daily basis. You have a letter from David Stark, the CEO of Iowa Method of Unity Point, indicating that in 2019, they had 158 documented cases where the security of the hospital had to respond to situations in its south parking lot with issues of vagrancy, generally people that were drunk, passed out, occasionally drug use. And we believe obviously not all are due to Quick Trip, but we believe that a significant number of them are due to the traffic that comes up to Quick Trip currently. This is not a good thing for a visitor parking lot where people are coming in to see someone for an operation at all times of the day. And so it's a concern to the hospital in that sense. We recognize that there's an issue now, but we have no interest in making this an even more significant issue. I guess we'd also point out, like others have, that there is a unique coalition of people against this. We have the Sherman Hill residents that are against it. The hospital is firmly against it. The businesses that have spent a lot of money on beautiful headquarters buildings are against it. And we have the homeless, the social services that serve the homeless community are against it because this is really, they believe, going to be a terrible thing for the communities that they serve. We also think it's a bad thing, and you've received a letter from the Des Moines Arts Center with respect to the negative effect on the sculpture part, where alcohol is not allowed except by special permit. So in sum, we think this is good for no one except possibly Quick Trip. And we urge you to reject this rezoning request. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim Wine. Questions for Mr. Wine from the commission? Okay, we have, looks like one more person who would like to speak. Jack Porter. *6 to unmute.
Jack, you're still muted. There you go.
Well, the directions were covering up the unmute button. Jack Porter, 815 18th Street. Martha and I have been residents of the Sherman Hill neighborhood for over 40 years. I object to the request, but I also want to stand in support of what our president, Ryan Howell, mentioned and Mr. Wine's comments. But I had three. One, this is not just merely a zoning change. This is a significant social, potential negative social impact on our neighborhood. Therefore, it's just not merely a zoning change. Secondly, I'm not aware of any effort by Quick Trip to contact anybody in the neighborhood independently. So it's pretty tough to contact Quick Trip, you know, if you don't know who to contact. And so I think that was an unfortunate development by Quick Trip. There's no way we could contact them as residents of the neighborhood. And finally, the comment by Mr. Bruner said they're a good corporate citizen. I have no doubt they are, but as far as I know, and of course I don't know everything, but they've never done one thing for Sherman Hill neighborhood. They've never sponsored anything. They've never expressed any support for the association that I'm aware of. Therefore, I think this is a very important decision. We're hoping and we're asking that the Plan and Zoning Commissioners reject this request and move on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Any questions for Mr. Porter from the commission? Okay, I see one more hand up. I would ask that if you try to add a new perspective. If you're just echoing what has been previously said, I think we've heard that. But if you have a new perspective, something to add, that would be great. Carol Maher.
Hi, thanks. Carol Maher. Yeah, I had sent in a request to speak. I'm sorry you didn't get it, but my address is 1510 Center Street. And the point of view I have is it perhaps something Quick Trip would be interested in, maybe providing funds for a social worker or outreach, perhaps to help with the issue that's been brought up several times tonight. I don't know if that's something that from a corporate outreach perspective would be something you'd be interested in as a way to engage the neighborhood and work together on the issue that seems to be problematic. And I was surprised, frankly, to hear that that you needed a zoning request for remodeling, because as Jason mentioned, there's not going to be drive-through available. So I wouldn't know I was confused as to what remodeling was going to require a zoning change. So that's just my point of view. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak in opposition or express concerns and add a new perspective? Okay, not seeing any. Mr. Bruner, you have a chance to address these concerns. You have 5 minutes. Mr. Bruner? Would Mr. Bruner like to make some comments?
Not hear me right now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Just touching on that last speaker, just because it's most recent. I mean, obviously, we'd be willing to have discussions as to what, Quick Trip can do. I think you mentioned maybe some funds to sponsor some outreach or social work. I mean, we saying we want to have a conversation is not lip service. We gave out the notice to the listing as provided by the city, which hits on all the main stakeholders in the neighborhood, including the neighborhood associations. And we provided our contact information, and for whatever reason, the correspondence was not directed to me or Quick Trip directly, it was directed to the city. So again, we're genuine and we want to hear these comments, digest these comments, and have a conversation to see what we can do to address them. That's, again, not lip service and something we intend to do. As to the zoning, and Jason or somebody else on the city staff can certainly correct me, but to the extent there is a remodel or upgrade, and it may depend on the scope of the upgrade, but I believe being that it's MX2 zoning currently, it may need a rezoning or a conditional use to ultimately allow for fuel sales. And a rezoning to MX3 would avoid any conditional use requirement in that respect, again, because fuel sales would be allowed. So on that topic, or in that vein, I would request, the city had certain limitations that they recommended as to the zoning. The only item we would request not be limited would be fuel sales. All other industrial and heavy industrial uses we don't take issue with, certainly, but I do want to get that on record and make note of that, again, for any planned upgrade and remodeling to the site going forward. And thank you again for the commentary, and we look forward to talking to you, hopefully.
Questions for Mr. Bruner from the commission? Okay, time to close the public hearing. Discussion from the commission. I guess I would say one thing. For several years, I rented an office right across from Quick Trip. And, you know, what we heard tonight is definitely true. In fact, at one time I did have to end up calling the police because of an intoxicated homeless person. So I have personal experience with this, but a discussion from the commission.
This is Francis Vargas. I think we should reject staff recommendation in this matter.
I think thanks, Francis. I think it's important to listen to the neighborhood and listen to the, you know, the stakeholders nearby. But other discussion from the commission, or does someone want to make a motion?
I make a motion to deny.
Well, wait a second. Okay, thanks, Francis, but go ahead, Greg.
Sorry, I just had a question. I'm trying to further understand from staff's perspective, and maybe they can jump in, the purpose of the rezoning. Is it about fuel sales or alcohol sales or something else on the site? I want to make sure I understand, because the way I understand alcohol sales is it has to go through the Board of Adjustment, and there's a different process for that. So if that's the case, my understanding, what would a change in zoning allow the applicant to do? Help me understand that.
Sure. Jason Van Essen with the planning staff. So just a couple of different things that, you know, just to look at it from where the property sits today, it's zoned MX2. So with that, in that zoning district, fuel cells is a conditional use. So should they clear the site and redevelop it or invest more than 50% of the value of the property and remodel, they'd have to first get a conditional use approval from the Zoning Board of Adjustment. The other part is the ability to ask for conditional use to sell liquor. And so that is not, you don't have that opportunity in MX2. MX3 district is kind of the next district that is available that would provide that opportunity. MX3 on its own does not require a conditional use for fuel cells for a gas station in general. The staff recommendation, the way it's written, we're actually offering limits on that would still require the conditional use process. I think you heard Ben request or suggest that, you know, they'd like to be able to do that by right. Does that answer your question, Greg?
Yeah, I think so. I appreciate it. I would offer just a couple of comments to the board, and sorry, Francis, I jumped in. So I'll let you make a motion, but my comments are, I'm actually in support of small gas station convenience stores in neighborhoods. We have many successful ones in the city of Des Moines, you know, not the 12 pumps, 20 pumps, 30 pumps, you know, 2, 4, 6, 8 pumps, many examples, Beaverdale, Windsor Heights, other places. So now whether they would need to, whether we should, currently my understanding is they would have to go get according to you, Jason, a conditional use permit if they change the sites substantially.
Yes.
There's no doubt we've heard significant amount of information from folks that liquor sales is problematic. And probably more disturbing for me is that there doesn't seem to have been good engagement. You've heard me say that a couple of times tonight with the neighborhood. It's fine to have disagreements and different points of view, but there should be a forum and an opportunity to share those. So I have a bigger concern with that. So with that said, those are my thoughts. And Francis, I'll get out of your way.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Greg. Francis, do you want to stick with your
Jan, this is Rocky. I'd just like to make a comment after listening to it. I think, the neighbors and the business owners, raise some good concerns about, problems we have in our community with homelessness and alcoholism and drug addiction that comes along with that. And I kind of piggyback off what Greg said when it comes to Quick Trip having a conversation with them. I don't think the precedent is that businesses have to hire social workers, though. I think, there could be some middle ground here. Quick Trip is not the reason for the problems we have in our community. They just want to do business in our community. Those people that want to buy liquor are going to find another place to buy liquor. But I think security should be very important in that area. from what you said, Jan.
Yeah.
And that is if they're going to push to sell liquor, we need to have security in that area. So Unity Point doesn't have to come over with their security to solve their problems. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Because I don't want to, I'm not trying to limit conversation here. Any other discussion? Okay, Francis, do you want to go with your motion?
Yes, I recommend denial of the request for rezoning.
Okay, Tyler, roll call.
Steve Wallace. Steve Wallace.
Yes.
Carolyn Jennison.
Yes.
Francis Bogus.
Yes.
Greg Wattier.
Yes.
Greg Jones.
Yes.
Abby Chungeth.
Yes.
Rocky Spizzato.
No.
Johnny Alcivar.
Yes.
Emily Webb.
Yes.
Dory Briles.
Yes.
Jan Freed.
Yes.
Kayla Berkson.
Yes.
And Lisa Howard.
Yes.
Motion carries 13-1, or excuse me, 12-1.
So it was denied. Yes. That closes, that ends the.
So, Madam Chair, if I could just follow up. So the recommendation of the Planning Commission on any rezoning will be forwarded to the City Council. We would anticipate that the council will receive and file the recommendation on November 9th and would set the date of hearing on the rezoning for November 23rd. Those are all tentative. People would want to double check with the clerk's office to confirm the dates of those items, to confirm, the day of the meeting, whether those items are on there. Because of the commission's recommendation for denial, it would require a 6/7 vote of the City Council to approve the rezoning over those objections. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. So we've closed the public hearing. We need to approve the 2021 meeting calendar. Motion?
This is Dory. I'll move approval of the 2021 meeting dates.
Okay, thank you, Dory. Tyler?
Jan Freed.
Yes.
Kayla Berkson.
Yes.
Lisa Howard.
Yes.
Steve Wallace.
Yes.
Carolyn Jennison.
Yes.
Francis Bogus.
Yes.
Greg Wattier.
Yes.
Greg Jones.
Yes.
Abby Chungeth.
Yes.
Rocky Spizzato.
Yes.
Johnny Alcivar.
Yes.
Emily Webb. Emily Webb. Dory Briles.
Yes.
Thank you. Emily, still with us? Looks like Emily might have left us. So we'll do motion carries 11-0.
Thanks, Tyler. Mike, director's report.
One quick thing, the meeting that we wanted to set up on sidewalks, I'll be sending out an invite tomorrow for that. And I don't have the date yet, but I will be sending that out. Or at least I'll send an email asking your availability for that. But I finally got an email back from our engineering department of their representatives, so I can start to schedule that meeting. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I want to thank everyone for hanging in there and doing our good work. So thanks, team.
Thank you, Jan.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Everybody have a good night.
Bye-bye.
You get it in there, didn't you? You just had to get your little bark in.